Hi, I'm Kyle, a tired therapist.
And I'm Jackie, also a tired therapist.
And together, we are
Two tired therapists.
Welcome to the pod. Hello. Hi, party people.
What's up, peeps in the house?
We really probably should come up with an intro at this point. Or maybe it's too late in the game.
It's too late. I think people really love our, I guess, candid intro. I don't know what you would call it. Our non-practice.
I don't think they do. I don't think at all.
We haven't gotten any letters yet.
That's true. We haven't.
We
so
haven't
maybe we're doing
no hate
okay.
mail recently for it. It's okay. Well, if you guys want us to do something different, I guess. I feel like it, like RuPaul's like hello, hello, hello. Like that's always like the entrance. Like
that's boring.
But it gets tired. I feel like it's a surprise every episode.
Right.
You never know what you're gonna get.
But it's usually just going hello,
Hi.
like in weird voices.
Yeah, a little bit. It's fine. But
it's fine.
Welcome to Two Tired Therapist.
Mm-hmm. We are indeed two tired therapists.
Yes. If you're new here, welcome. If you're not new here, welcome.
Jackie, what's tired for you? What's been going on?
Me? Well, not a whole lot, but I will say something that I've thought about, and I don't see it very often. I don't hear it very often, but I used to a long time ago. Is when you talk about yourself in the third person, I'm so tired of people who do that.
Oh,
it's like
oh, Kyle's so tired.
Yeah,
today.
but you're talking about yourself. I'm so tired of that.
Do people do that?
Some people do. I think people who, I don't want to use this word, but I think I'm gonna. People who are like maybe narcissists or like really full of themselves that's the only time I've ever noticed somebody using it. Like in all seriousness, like if you say it as a joke, to be like, Jackie is looking good today, like I would be like, get away from me. Get your shit away from me. Don't talk to me. Don't look at me. I don't even want to know.
If you ever said, if I was like, hey Jackie, how you doing? You're like, well, Jackie is fabulous today. I would be like, oh, and cancel.
You'd be like, I gotta go. It's time for me to head out. Bye-bye.
I know I just got here, but I have to go.
Well, and it goes along with like people who make up, people who make up nicknames for themselves, or they have like a nickname and then they use it on like the third person. Like I don't have like a nickname, I guess, but like I don't know. I'm trying to think of like a show. There was some guy in some show that did something like that. It was like the Fonz. Like the Fonz was like, oh, the Fonz is cool. Like, no, go away. Like if you're gonna do it, use your real name and then don't even do it because we hate it.
First person. I.
Yeah, it's perfectly acceptable. It's fine.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm gonna get confused talking. Actually, it would confuse me more if somebody used their first name because I'd be like, are you talking about a different Kyle? Are you like who's the other Kyle? Anyways,
right.
I'm very tired of that. That shit.
That is very tired.
So
yes.
That's
yes.
Me. What about you?
Well, as we famously discussed, I did have COVID and did not do a lot during that time other than scroll through Facebook and Instagram. And
you went into the depths.
What?
You went into the depths of the
I went into the depths.
The internet.
And I came across these interesting videos that I guess I never really realized existed. But these ASMR eating videos,
I'm not a fan of the ASMR stuff. Like I can see why people like it. It doesn't do anything for me.
It doesn't do it for me. It freaks me out. But the eating, like I'm not a person who has a problem hearing you like chew. That doesn't really bother me.
Mm-hmm.
But these ASMR videos where I can hear you chewing and gulping, and it's a no. It's a no for me. It's I just don't need it. I don't get it. And they're eating an ungodly amount of food as well. It's not like they're just like, oh, here's my...
Are they eating like food that makes a lot of noise, like chips? Or...
Yes. Yeah. Well, the one that I found that I'm it's kind of like a train wreck. Like I'm fascinated by it, but also repulsed by it.
Oh God.
Is this like Asian girl, and she just either makes a bunch of like dishes or she like orders it in, and it's like, I mean, she's made everything, and she just is just chomping away, and you just like hear her swallow, and
No, I never got. I mean, that the ASMR stuff was big like a couple years ago, but yeah, like I never got. It was never a thing. Like I don't mind.
No.
I don't know. It's not something I don't think I've ever gone and been like, I need to listen to an ASMR video. I've never done that, but I've seen them.
And there's some weird ones out there too. There's like people who eat like pickles or are like click clacking on a keyboard. I don't get it. I don't get
The
it.
click
It's
clacking, I
tired.
don't mind that stuff. I watched like a joke, like it was a different video, but they were doing like ASMR stuff as a joke, and they were
Mm-hmm.
tapping their fingernails on the mic, and that actually
Mm,
didn't bother me that much. But
I don't know. Just not for me,
I was
especially
click clacking.
eating. Let's stop.
No,
Let's stop doing that.
yeah, we
I
don't.
don't need to hear that.
I don't that's a
I
no
don't need.
for us. Thank you.
It's a no for us. Thank you.
that's,
Thank you so
that's
much.
yeah, no, it's a no. Well, this is going to be a fun episode. I think this is a you
It's
episode, but I
it's going to
know
be a
what's
wild
happening.
ride. It's going to be a wild ride, and I'm really excited for it. You do know what's happening. We did discuss
Yes, we
and
did.
watch what we will be discussing today.
Hmm.
However, I'm very interested to hear some of your thoughts.
Oh, I have plenty. You will hear all of them.
Great. I'm so happy. I also hope this isn't a 10-hour long episode because we have a lot to get into.
This is gonna be this is buckle in,
Buckle in.
everybody.
We everybody please, because we are going to be discussing the curious case of Natalia Grace.
Yeah.
So this is a docu-series, I
Hmm.
guess, that is available on Max,
Formerly HBO Max. I don't know why they changed
formerly
that, but
HBO
whatever.
Max.
Stupid
Yeah, we're not
corporate
sure
thing.
about that, but it's I think 6 episodes.
Hmm.
You can also get. I got it on Amazon because I don't Max, and I bought it for like $6. So if you haven't seen this, go watch it and then come back.
Yeah.
It's probably less than 6 hours. I don't think any episode was longer than an hour.
We Justin and
Um,
I watched it in a day, and it was probably about 6 hours because they're about an
yeah,
hour, a little less than that a piece for
yeah,
each
like 40
episode.
some minutes. So for those of you who don't know, here's the overview of the story, and the overview does. I mean, it's one of those things where like you're like, this can't get worse, and then it does. So Natalia Grace was adopted by Michael and Christine Barnett
Hmm.
in, I think it was April of 2010. She had a rare form of dwarfism called, I'm not even going to try to
Yeah,
pronounce it.
it's a. I remember them saying it's like one of the rarest
Yes.
types of dwarfism that like only 3,000
Hmm.
some odd people have it. Anyways, yeah, I have
Yes.
no idea how to
Yes.
pronounce it.
I wrote it down, but I'm just not going to even try.
Okay.
She would have been the fourth child in the Barnett family, along with Jacob, who we will be
Oh,
discussing at later.
sure.
Wesley and Ethan. The family
Sure.
lived in a suburb of Indianapolis called Westfield.
Yes.
And not long after her adoption, the Barnetts alleged that Natalia was really an adult
Hmm.
masquerading as a child and
Hmm.
terrorizing the family.
Hmm. Hmm.
Let's just start with Jackie. What are some first impression? Just before we even get into it, what were you feeling as you watched this? How are you
Oh.
feeling now as you've maybe processed some of the trauma?
I didn't stop thinking about this probably for a good 3 days after we watched it. We watched it last weekend on like a Saturday or Sunday or something, and I was like, we got anyways. I will say
Hmm.
watching it. So, and I'll say the documentary is pretty good. I think it's pretty balanced. I like out
Yeah.
of documentaries, I would say this is probably the most balanced documentary I've watched. Where like one episode is the parents, one episode is sort of like other people's accounts because there's a lot of people there's a lot of people in the documentary. Anyways,
Hmm. Hmm.
so my the number one thing when you said what do you think or what were your reactions, I had the hardest time believing the dad because he was so histrionic. The man was like sobbing.
Allegedly.
Alleged
Allegedly.
the he
We
would
can't
like
diagnose. We can't
no.
diagnose
So,
real people,
well, and
but
it's probably important to note that the dad and the oldest son, Jacob, participated in the documentary. His
yes.
ex-wife, who you learn through the documentary they get divorced, did not participate, nor did the younger two of the sons. They also didn't
Hmm.
get Natalia's, like, they didn't get her, and I don't know if they asked her or if they just didn't. But anyways, but it was hard
Mm.
because the dad was very dramatic. Like, he'd be telling the story. One second he'd be sobbing, and then the next second he'd
Hmm.
be screaming. And then
Drama.
right, and then he would like he was acting stuff out, and then he was like,
Yeah.
I mean, it was just I don't know. I had a hard time really. That was my number one thought is I had a hard time believing the
Yeah.
dad
But
because
it's
he
not
was
just
so dramatic.
it's not just he was acting. I mean, he
No,
was president of the thespian club
yeah,
in high
like
school. Like he
does he have a
was.
BFA? Is what I need to know because
Yeah,
I mean, it was a lot.
it was a lot. It was like complete acted, blocked like scenes
Yes.
that he was acting in.
Yeah, like I mean, it was well, and if you ever wondered, like, what Jackie, what was your life like in the prison? What are the individuals like? That's a pretty good example of
Yeah,
anybody that I worked
yeah,
with who had a personality disorder. I'm just gonna say
right,
it. I'm not diagnosing this guy. I
I,
don't know him, but
right,
it was a lot. So there was that.
right,
The other
yes,
thing I thought was just like, so and I don't know how much you're gonna get into all of the allegations. There's a lot of
there's a
allegations from
lot,
the
yeah,
parents.
hmm
My biggest question is, so they allege at one point, sorry if I'm stealing your thunder, please
no, it's
cut me
fine.
off. So they allege from the jump, they adopt her from this sort of like weird shady place in like Florida,
Florida,
where like these other adoptive parents drop her off and basically like say bye, and they piece the fuck out and they're gone and
right,
like never to be heard from
right,
again. So they get her, and so they decide to stay in Florida and like go to Disney World or something. So like the first night the mom is bathing her and the mom screams, and the mom is like, she has pubic hair and she's supposed to be
hmm
6 or something like that. So it's like, yeah,
six,
it's
yeah,
like, yeah. And so and the dad says, yeah, she did, like they bathed her or whatever. And I'm like, well, okay, we're like a pediatrician, like that's my like, did they take her when they first got her, did they wait? Because I'm like, wouldn't doctors be able to like, and then it comes
hmm
later in the series where you kind of they get a doctor who did x-rays who says like definitively, like at the time he saw her, what he thought. But I don't know, like I thought that was so weird. I was like, why aren't they talking more about like doctors or what doctors were saying? Because then later the mom alleges she had a period like not long after that. And
hmm
again, she's according to her birth year is like 2003. So
2003,
she's like 6 or 7 when they get her. And so they're saying she's got all these things, or like she has the pubic hair, she's got her period, and then they start
right.
alleging she's trying to kill them. It's like a whole thing.
It's a whole thing.
And it's just
hmm
I don't know, it was so strange. I was so stuck on not believing the dad, and then like why didn't they seek help sooner? Like if they were really experiencing all these things, like cuz they didn't talk to anybody about it. They didn't call the police. They didn't call
Right,
CPS
right.
on themselves, which is what I probably would have suggested if I was a therapist. They said they were getting therapist help, but I don't really believe that, to be quite honest,
Questionable,
based on some
questionable
of the
help.
stuff that the
Yeah.
older son
Oh
said
well,
that the
we'll
therapist.
talk
I'll let you
about
get
that
there.
too. Yeah. Oh, we'll talk about that.
But and then I don't know, I just thought I don't know, it was so bizarre. And then I'm like, of all the things to allege, like, okay, like, let's say you don't like this kid, you don't like, it's not working out, there's something going on. Why would you say she's an adult? Like, why wouldn't you just try to contact, like, I don't know, CPS, or like contact the
hmm
school, or contact somebody and be like, listen, like, this is a lot for us. We can't do this. Like, I feel terrible. And give her to somebody else, or give her to like another agency or something like that. Yeah, that's terrible for her, but it's better than basically what transpired for the next 10 years,
Like
15
10
years.
years.
I mean, it was just, it was a lot. There was a lot to unpack with all of them.
Yes.
Yeah, anyways, continue.
Well, but I think,
I could talk
well,
about this for like
no,
an hour.
no, that's perfect. We're gonna get into all of that. But I think I'll tell you my theory at the end. We'll get into all the nitty gritty, and
Yeah, I need
I'll
to
give
know.
you my
I need
theory.
to know what your thought is, because I started watching it and I had one thought, and then as the documentary went on, I had a
hmm
second thought, and like yeah.
Well,
Anyways,
I watched it twice because I
yeah,
watched
you
it
watched it a while
a
ago.
couple months ago, and then to prepare for this, I rewatched it, and I have thoughts. So
We'll get
I'll tell
into
you
it.
my theory at the end. But yeah, I agree. No, my overall impressions were everyone sucks
Yeah,
pretty
everyone
much.
does
Like
suck
this
pretty
is one of
much.
those like nobody's
Nobody
innocent
won.
basically.
Yeah.
Nobody won. Lots of crazy pants.
Yeah.
Like I'm not sure
I don't
who
even want to talk about the mom, but yeah, she's
I'm not sure who was sane in this story. Not sure we met anybody
no,
who was sane.
I don't think anybody had a shred of rationality to them in this
No,
story, unfortunately, which
no,
is a real
no.
shame.
But it is definitely a story about age. Her age comes into the story a lot,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
also her ability or disability too.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
those I think were the big takeaways. So you mentioned the adoption. Yes, there was an agency in Florida that reached out to the Barnetts. They had been trying to adopt a child, I think from like Puerto Rico at first, and then there were earthquakes and they weren't able to adopt
Yeah,
that
and it was a
child.
Haiti. I don't know. They were trying
Oh, maybe it was Haiti.
they
Yeah,
were trying to
maybe it was
yeah, they
Haiti.
were trying to adopt, and their
Yeah.
oldest Jacob, they talk about how he's on the autism spectrum, but they were like special needs like parents or whatever.
Yes, they
And
were. Yeah, and
so
that does come into play later. Like you said, so her birthday was supposed to be September 4th, 2003.
mhm,
So that would have made her around 6 or 7 when she was
mhm,
adopted.
yeah.
They allegedly found pubic hair
Mhm.
when giving her a bath. So the first few months it goes downhill.
Yeah.
The Barnetts allege that she was having a period and hiding it, And in the documentary, there's a video of them interrogating her about her period.
Pause for 1 second. Wasn't it weird the amount of videos they had of them like talking to her and like questioning her? I thought that was so odd.
Yes.
Okay.
It's disgusting.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's disgusting. They allege that she would urinate and put poop on the youngest child.
Yeah.
They allege that she would throw like the siblings' toys into the middle of the road so that the kids would go out and get hit by a car. They allege that she would hide knives in her room and said she wanted to kill everybody.
Yep.
They met with another family whose daughter had the same genetic disorder, and they felt that comparatively, the two of them, Natalia looked much older and more developed.
Yeah, and if you do see that picture, it
did. Yeah, they did look a little different.
Yeah, they did look different. The same type of rare genetic disorder, like the little girl had it. The other girl had it too.
But this is when they felt like they caught her. They caught her in the act of masquerading as a child.
Yes.
They interview a self-described nosy neighbor who I loved very much.
Yeah, she was hilarious.
She said that they didn't suspect anything. They thought the Barnetts were like perfect and wonderful. And then when Christine was the
mom,
mom. When she started to tell the neighbor everything, the neighbor said, "Oh, goodbye. I don't want to be associated with you anymore."
Well, and like probably unless I don't think you talked about it yet, but it was they were kind of a well-known, well-to-do family in that community because the oldest son was like
he was like
gifted,
a genius.
a genius. Like, and so, and it comes into play later where like they go to a different country because the school wanted the so like they were at like newspaper articles written about him. Like there, and I think there was a show where he was on TV. They were on, was it Dateline or something?
They were done,
maybe 60 Minutes or something.
60 Minutes.
Yeah.
And
so
Christine wrote a book about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, they were pretty. Right. They were pretty well known.
Yeah, they were kind of famous. I don't want to say famous, but they were like
locally.
They were local famous. We'll say.
Yeah. They alleged that Natalia tried to kill Christine by putting chemicals in her coffee.
Sorry.
So after all this happens, again, this is a couple months.
Yeah, this is really quick.
So then they decide, let's take her to therapist. And this was a direct quote from Michael, I think, where he said, "We expected schizophrenia."
I pissed myself when he said that. I was like, she is 6. Okay.
She is 6.
She's
First
6.
of all, you can't diagnose a child with schizophrenia.
No, you can't really diagnose disorders of the childhood, which are, it's not a lot of stuff that you can diagnose a kid with.
Right.
Yeah, I was like, no, this is not schizophrenia.
No. Right. So not even red flag number 1, but red flag number 1.
Yeah.
Really. So they met with several therapists that they didn't stick with because they didn't get it. Red flag number 2.
Right, yeah. I thought that was weird.
And then they finally found a therapist who got it and diagnosed them. I'm doing lots of air quotes. Diagnosed Natalia as a sociopath.
Yeah, I was like, she's 6.
She's 6.
I'm just going to say for the parents out there who may be listening, sometimes kids are assholes. That doesn't make them you shouldn't diagnose them as a sociopath at age 6. Right. That's like a good age for them to start learning like right and wrong. And I read a lot of stories as the Reddit queen of this place. Right. Like I read a lot of stories of parents that are like, my kid is purposely doing it, and they're like 5 or 6. And I'm like, your kid is not purposely being a dick to you. Like that's just kid behavior like at that age. But anyways, that's what I thought. I was like, wow, I'm like that. I'm like, that therapist needs to be fired if you really, and there's also no such thing as a diagnosis of sociopathy.
No,
There's no such thing. That would be like conduct disorder or like antisocial personality disorder. There's no such thing as a sociopath diagnosis. Bad.
So they're in treatment with this therapist who thinks she's a sociopath. But then at one point they take her to what's called the crisis center or the stress center, which is like a crisis center.
Yeah.
Which I was like, why are you taking her to the crisis center when she's in services? That doesn't make sense. And they were allegedly told nothing's ever going to change. She's just like this. You need to take her home, lock her up, and
like get a lock for the outside of her door. Don't ever let her leave her room. Like
if she has to go to the bathroom, escort her.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to unpack.
That's a lot. And if you
if you are truly scared of your child, this is like wow.
Well, that'll come up. But if you're truly scared of your child, first off, your child who has a disability.
Right. She can't even, she can hardly walk. Like her legs are like, there's no way she could run. Like there's no way.
No.
And they're like alleging she's doing all these things. She's also like really small. And there's another instance I'm sure you'll get to where the mom says she was like getting pulled by her. And I'm like,
that's the next.
And I'm like, there's no way she could have done that.
No,
that's fine.
No way she could have done that. No. But also call the police because up until this point, They had not
Yeah.
called the police.
Yeah, they've involved nobody, and they talk a little about it to some people, but not even that many. Like they told the neighbor, but they didn't tell like their family. They told their family some stuff, but not all the stuff. It was really bizarre.
Mm-mm.
Like
It was,
the
yeah.
reporting was strange the
Well,
way they did it.
Jackie, because when you make up
I
stories,
know it's
it's
hard.
hard to
It's
keep
hard to keep
track.
track.
It's hard to keep track. That
Yeah,
will come
it's
into play
yeah, it
later.
is. Yeah, it does come hard into play later. Oh my
So
god.
let's talk about, you just alluded to it, the creamery
The creamery
incident.
sounds so
I've
gross.
labeled I've labeled all my sections. This is the creamery
Yes, the
incident.
creamery incident.
So there's a creamery in Indianapolis they went to for one of the son's birthdays, I believe. And
Yeah.
there was an electric fence to contain the livestock. And they said Natalia lit up when she heard there was an electric fence. And so Natalia was having a hard time walking, believe it or not. And so she and Christine hang back
Yeah.
and they send the boys and Michael to continue. So this is going to come up a little bit later, but here's the first story we get from the documentary. So Michael says he gets kind of a little far out, but hears screaming, and when he turns around, he sees Natalia pulling Christine towards the electric fence.
Right.
But Christine says, "Keep going, I've got it." But then they hear sirens, and so they make their way back. Michael said he was sure, again, he's dramatic, was sure Christine was dead. He was sure of it. But it was the cops being called for whatever disturbance. And Michael and Christine want to arrest Natalia and charge her because she was supposedly like trying to pull Christine towards the
touch the fence or whatever.
Yeah. And she admitted to the police that she was indeed trying to do that.
Yeah, they said as like I think the first story he said as they put her like because they put her like in an ambulance or something. I think they put her because to the hospital. Right. They were saying as she was like going into the ambulance, she was like shouting that she was going to kill them, and she's been trying to kill the mom, and she's going to kill them no matter what happens.
Right.
And I think it's after that incident that she goes to LaRue. Right.
She goes, to a wonderful state hospital.
I can speak about LaRue if you want me to.
Please, LaRue.
I've been there. I actually went there one time.
LaRue Carter. I don't believe it's still open now.
It is absolutely not still open. I think it closed a couple, maybe 5 to 7 years ago. I actually went there once for work. When I first, it was like 10 years ago now. Gross. But I went there, and it's a pretty well-known hospital in Indianapolis, a mental hospital. They have adult units, and I believe they had children's units. I mean, it's a state-run facility. It wasn't a nice place, so I have seen the inside of it. I know what a unit looks like, and I can only imagine how frightening it probably was for Natalia to go there, to be honest.
Yes.
It's not a fun place.
Yes. So that's where she gets taken. And she reportedly in detail admitted how she was wanting to kill the family and how she was going to.
Yeah.
They interviewed past staff that said she was aggressive and manipulative.
Interesting that all these staff were like phone calls and like nobody would identify themselves. I'm just going to throw that out there. That's all.
For who knows why.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah.
Many reasons. But they ended up transferring her to the adult wing because they allegedly discovered pubic hair. The employees they interviewed did believe she was an adult, said she would talk about sex, wanting a boyfriend, said she had breasts, and would proposition the other patients for sex.
Yeah.
And then because of that behavior, the hospital contacted the Barnetts and said, please come get her. Yeah. We no longer want her.
How long was she? Wasn't there, like, she was there for a little bit, but not like a couple months, maybe? I don't know.
Maybe a couple months. Yeah, she wasn't.
They never really said how long she was, like, there for, anyways.
Well, let's take a break. This is a lot.
Yes.
We have a lot of processing we need to do.
I need to call Jesus, who is on speed dial, and I need to talk to him about this because
it's dark-sided.
It's given dark-sided.
It's given dark-sided. Yeah. So we'll get into the story a little bit more after the break. No. So the Barnetts come get her, and this is when things don't add up. Okay. As we talked about earlier, the Barnetts never called the police on Natalia, even though they said they feared so much for their life. Never once.
Right. And believed so strange.
And believed she was an adult. Like, I could see you being like, it's my 6-year-old, I'm not going to call the cops on her. But if you believe this is an adult, and you didn't call the cop. What's going on here?
Well, and that's why I said like they could have called CPS on themselves. Like even like as soon as she started doing weird stuff with like the alleging that she was taking knives because they at one point he
Mm-hmm.
said like he woke up one night and she was standing at the foot of a bed like with a knife pointed at them.
Right,
And
saying like I'm gonna kill
why
you.
wouldn't you
Mm-hmm.
immediately
Mm-hmm.
like I don't know. Anyways, sorry. That's
Right.
another big question that never got answered.
Yes. So a neighbor calls DCS because they saw Natalia sleeping outside in the
Yes.
middle of the night.
Yes. Right.
So this was due to allegedly Christine would interrogate Natalia about who she really was.
Yeah.
She would ask Natalia, "You need to write down names and places that you know from your life,
Yeah,
so
like
we can
people,
find out
yeah,
who
people
you
you've
really
lived with
are."
or something like that. It was
Right.
really weird. Like,
And so when she wouldn't comply, she would make her stand on the wall, like her
yeah.
nose to the wall. And one of these times it escalated to where she sent Natalia outside and said, "Well, you're not going to sleep in a bed if you don't tell me
Yeah.
this information." So after this DCS call, now the Barnetts decide they're going to call the police
Right.
because they believe Natalia is a threat. Allegedly, the investigator, I don't know if he was an officer or what he was, but says, "Well, her birth certificate is clearly fake and you need to correct her age."
Right.
However, in a weird, when someone tells them this, then they start to question. They're like, "Why would we do that? Why would we change her age?" And I thought that was bizarre that all this time you can't get anyone to believe that this is really not a child but an
Right.
adult. And then someone tells you and you're like, "Oh, what? No, we would never." I just thought that was bizarre. This actually, so later on, you find out this investigator never actually said that.
Nope.
The investigator actually had passed away when they
Oh, yeah,
later when
that's right.
some of the criminal charges started to come out. However, there was an email that an investigator had sent to it must have been like a DCS
Yeah.
caseworker
Yeah.
where they stated that they believed this that Natalia was a child.
Yeah.
So
They had that's all that they could have. Yeah, because that guy died. I forgot about that, but yeah.
yes. So during the initial contacts with the police, an investigator goes to track down Natalia's birth mother in the Ukraine. She was born in
Yes.
Ukraine. They were able to find Natalia's aunt who called mom, and mom was going off on the other line saying how she's
She
been dealing
was
with this shit for
17
17
years.
years. And this was in 2020, so that
Yeah.
would put her birth
But
year
yeah,
at
2003.
2003.
Yeah.
So we're starting to get some information that Natalia
Right.
really was born
Born
in,
in 2003.
2003.
Yeah.
So again, this is all within the first couple months. I wouldn't even say we're at a year
I
yet.
think
So
it was only about 6 months in or something like
so
that.
again, she's 6 or 7
Yeah.
as all these allegations are coming out, all
Right.
this treatment, all these punishments, and
Right.
things like that. So when more things don't add up, the family that had Natalia before had
Yeah.
attempted to get her adopted twice. Well, at
That's a
least
nice way
twice
to
that we
say it.
know of.
I would say they tried to pawn her
Pawn
off
her
on
off. Yeah.
somebody else's kind of, but they went and specifically they went to like because they themselves were not little people, but
I don't think
they went
so.
to a little person convention
Yes.
because they wanted her to meet other people who were like her, which is in
Like
theory
her.
is
Yeah.
a good idea.
Yes.
But they met two different. Well, they only had two in the
At
documentary. I don't know
least
if they
that
were
they
removed.
interviewed in the documentary.
Yeah, so there was two. It was a husband and a wife who were also little people, and then it was another woman who was a little person who also lived in Indiana. I think I can't remember where the couple didn't live in
I feel
Indiana.
like they lived in like Florida.
Yeah, I was gonna say I thought they were in like Florida or like in a southern state. So,
Hmm.
anyways, go on. Yes.
So, but both of those families that you talked about, they thought the situation was sketchy.
Yeah.
The family wanted like extra money. Like
Yeah, they
at
said.
first they said just
Yeah.
pay the adoption fees, but then they were like, "Well, pay for her medical bills that she had from when she was born or something."
Right,
And
and
they
they were
were
saying it
like,
was like
"That's
30.
weird."
It was like 25 to $30,000
20,
that
yeah,
family
it was a lot
wanted
of
for
money.
her. It was weird.
The couple said that because
Yeah,
they
they.
met Natalia, the
Mm-hmm.
couple did. They believed that she looked young, but they felt like something was off.
Yeah, they said something was weird because they went and they visited
Hmm.
the first adoptive family,
Hmm.
and they said like it was strange because it seemed like Natalia's answers were really rehearsed, and if she didn't look at
Yeah.
the adoptive mom, like, and then I guess they asked her some question. I don't remember what the question was, and she kind of gave like a. I think they asked her like, "How's it been in the U.S." or what was it like in the
They
Ukraine or
asked
something.
her
Like
they
they asked
asked
her
her the
something like,
how the adoption like her
"Oh,
adoption house was or
yeah,
whatever.
like yeah," and she said, "Oh, it
Mhm.
sucked or whatever," and she was like 5 or 5, maybe barely 6 at this point,
Right.
and that wasn't like a rehearsed answer or whatever. And
Right.
the couple said that the adoptive mom kind of had like a look and like really they could just tell something was off, and the guy was like,
Right.
it was.
And she like jumped in and was like, "Well, no, it wasn't that bad. It was okay. It was good."
Yeah, but like it was
Mm-hmm.
so funny because they had like the husband of that couple was like, I don't listen to my gut very often, and then he did this like weird. Do you remember that part where he like closed his eyes and he was like like
Well,
feeling
because
whatever?
well,
It was like really
let's look.
dramatic, but it was
You know
funny.
what? Religion is not everybody's tea.
No, it was
And that's fine. But
it was
they were so funny because she was like, "My husband has a gift from God, the
yeah.
gift of discernment." And I was like,
Don't we all have it?
"Okay, this interview is over."
Yeah, but it was weird. It was just more dramatic. It's fine. You can say that you have God speaks to your gut or whatever. That's
Sure.
totally fine. But
Fine,
the way
fine.
he did it was so dramatic, and he paused
Yeah.
and he
It
kind of
was
like put his like
very
hands to his temple and he
yeah.
was like, I'm like, what are you
It was
doing?
very it was very Millie Billigan of like,
Yes.
I want to talk to Sarah.
Yeah.
Like it was very
It was
that.
a lot, but yeah, I mean, and I felt for them because they seemed like they wanted her. The other lady
They did.
who
Oh,
also was lived in Indiana was so sweet, and she was
she
just
was
like,
very
we couldn't
sweet.
afford whatever,
Yeah.
and her husband wasn't like 100% in on it, and she was like, I don't,
Yeah.
he said we shouldn't do this, but she was that woman was like, I really felt like I was supposed to be her mom, and that was really
Yeah.
heartbreaking, and she was the one originally who, when they were interviewing about the creamery incident, as you talked about a little bit ago,
Uh-huh.
was saying like she was like, if anybody can't hold me off, and I mean, she's an adult, but she's still, a little person. She's like,
And
then
walks
something
around
is
with like crutches.
right. She goes, I could hold somebody off. She goes, but I couldn't drag a person to a fence. She goes, that's a 6-year-old
Right.
kid. Like, there's no
And
way.
no offense, Christine, if you're listening, but she
She,
wasn't like 120 pounds. Like she
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 was,
was
I think
she wasn't
she's
she
too,
was a,
yeah, that's fine.
I mean, she not that she was like 400 pounds, but I mean, she was a normal sized woman. So there's no way this
Yeah.
tiny little like
Well, and
what 3 foot child can
I
pull
don't think she
you.
was 3 foot. I think when they showed a picture of her ID, she was 2'11" and
Yeah.
45 pounds. So you're telling me a
Right.
45-pound person
No.
pulled you, let's just say 120-pound woman. There's no way. There's no way.
No.
Sorry. No
No.
way.
Not at all. No way. Not at all. So fast forward, the Barnetts had discovered that this past family had been trying to pawn off
Yes.
Natalia and attempted to contact these two families.
Mm-hmm.
And long story short, both of these families were like, these Barnetts
Bye.
are cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
Yeah. Peace out.
So peace out. It's a no for me.
Yeah.
And then the domestic violence
Here we go.
comes out. There were police reports of domestic violence a few years before they adopted Natalia.
Yes.
I didn't get quite the year, but it wasn't too long.
I think it was like 2003 to 5, maybe.
Yeah.
Like, it was not that long. It was like less
was
than
not
5
that
years
long.
before they adopted her, I think.
There were phone recordings that they played on a documentary of Michael and Christina arguing. Just num. Put me on an ASMR eating video because I ate that shit up.
Yeah, it was
because
interesting.
You got Michael who's just yelling,
screaming
as he does,
Yeah.
screaming. Christine gaslighting him,
Yeah.
which was just, I mean, I would never make
Perfection.
light of domestic violence, but wow, they were really ugly. Like the two of them together were capital toxic.
I was gonna say toxic.
Toxica. So and about this time in the documentary too, they interview some of the workers from the creamery.
Yes, this was hilarious. I pissed my pants laughing watching
And
this.
we get completely different stories.
The first guy was so funny. He was like, nah.
Nah, none of
that
it.
didn't happen.
No. He said Christine was hysterical.
Yes.
Which I believe.
Checks.
They show him the interview with Michael when
Right.
Michael was saying what he had initially
Yeah.
said. And the worker said,
Nah.
none of that happened. Nothing happened. He said the situation was overblown. They interviewed another staff member that said the fence wasn't even on that day.
Yeah, it wasn't working because the cows were in a totally different section of the creamery.
And he said even if it was on, it wouldn't kill anybody.
Yeah,
because we don't want to kill our livestock.
Right.
So it's not like an electric chair where you
that was so
touch
funny.
it and you're like,
yeah.
and then you're dead.
He was funny too because he was just like, was it on? No. Did it? Would it kill anything? No. Could I turn it off? Do I want to turn it off? Yeah, but it didn't. It wasn't even on, so I couldn't even.
Right.
It was just really funny anyway.
And then they said too, they were like, I don't even know how a small girl with dwarfism could even overpower an adult.
Right. Oh my god.
To top it off, in a different interview, Michael said his story changed completely. He said,
Yeah.
"Well, I was nowhere near the incident. Everything was
Yeah.
over by the time I got back," when that is not what he said at first.
Yeah. Maybe it's important to explain that I would say 90% of this documentary is an interview from Michael. I think it's from 2019. He's like in a suit. The
Mm-hmm.
background's like orange or red or something like that.
Yeah.
And then they interview him like in current day, and his stories
Right.
are like almost 180 different from what he said
180.
in
Yeah.
2019. And then he tries to explain
Yes.
why that's different. And then it becomes just,
Yeah.
we can't have, the drama is too high. Like, I couldn't,
Yes.
I just found it to be so like fake. I hate to say it like that, but it's just
No,
so fake.
absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
because in his 2019 story, he said, I I ran to her like I was only like a half a mile up, like I went running. And then in
Mm-hmm.
2022 or whenever this was recorded, he was just like, no, like I was, we had to walk back. He goes, I didn't run back to
Yeah.
her, like. And
Everything was over by the
yeah,
time I
yeah, by
got
the time I
there.
got there, they were putting her into the
Mm.
ambulance. When in the first story, he was like right a whole part of that stuff, like. And yeah, it didn't
Yeah.
make sense. Mm-mm.
No. And notably too, I will say Natalia was interviewed later
Mm-hmm.
for this, and she also gave a different
Yeah.
story. But again,
But hers was
we'll
a little
kind of
bit more like, wasn't it because of like she had like a pair of shoes and they were hurting or something like that. That's why she wanted to
that's
stay
what
back.
yeah.
She couldn't like
Yeah.
walk. But yeah, it was a very
Yeah.
different account.
So, but again, she probably again was a child being
Yeah.
traumatized, so
Yeah.
not a great memory there.
No.
So the next part we get into what I like to call ASL, age, sex, location, for those of you
The youngins, you
because
don't know the chat
we
rooms.
you don't know the chat rooms, because her age really becomes
Oh my
central
god.
to the story at this point.
Yeah.
So we're in 2012. So this is about 2 years after they've adopted Natalia. The Barnetts petition the courts
Mm-hmm.
to change her age,
Right.
and lo and behold, the petition is granted
Yes.
without a trial, without anything, no hearings, no nothing,
Yeah.
um, other than a report from the doctor that
Right.
she is a child. So now Natalia's birthday is September 4th,
1989.
1989, making her 22
Right.
years old. So
Right.
she goes from being,
8 or
at this
9 or
point, she
something.
would have been like 8
Yeah.
to 22 years old,
Yeah.
meaning that they would have adopted her when she was 20.
Yeah.
This is important to remember later.
Yes.
We will discuss why this age. Um, so not long after this, they get the Barnetts rent her a
A
shitty
little.
little apartment.
Yep.
Even though at the time they had lots of money, they had many
Yeah.
cars, many like
Yeah.
classic
Yeah,
cars.
they were well off. They lived in a
They
very nice
yes,
neighborhood, like in a very nice
mm-hmm,
big house. Yeah.
yes. They gave her some furniture, bought her some groceries, and got her a food stamps card.
Yeah.
So the one of the neighbors said that they saw Natalia moving in and moving all her groceries
Oh,
in.
this was the old lady. She was my favorite of the whole thing.
What was her fascination with the Eiffel Tower?
I don't know, but it was so I loved her. She was probably my favorite person in the whole documentary.
Well, again, the neighbors also
She
not
was like an
great.
older, I would say she's probably in her
Yeah,
60s or 70s. She was an older woman who lived like,
definite grandma.
yeah, definitely grandma, very grandma
Mhm.
vibes. If you look at her house, there was a lot of figurines, there was a
A
lot
lot
of
of
like
Eiffel
wood
Towers
tones.
everywhere.
Maybe she
Don't know
loves
why.
France. I think her name was Sue. She was, but yeah, she, like you were
Yeah.
saying, like they were like moving Natalia and they left her on the
Mhm.
sidewalk with the groceries. Christine's in the car just sitting there watching her, and then Sue walks up and is
Mhm.
like, "You want help?" and
Right.
helps
And
her.
they're right.
And then like Christine
Right.
drives away or something like really
Yeah.
fast. Like just says bye bitch and like runs
Bye.
off.
Yeah. See ya. So then Natalia starts to visit the neighbors' homes.
Yeah.
The neighbors felt that she was not a child.
Yeah, they didn't think
They
she was a
thought
child.
they thought she was an adult. They said she was not clean. She wore the same clothes day
Yeah.
after day after day. They weren't even sure, because of her disability, if she could even like take off or put on her own clothes.
Right. Well, and they said she had kind
Um,
of like a weird little speech that she gave them when she greeted them. She was just like, "Hi, my name is Natalia. Like, I know I look like a child, but I'm a." And they said like that was really weird, and it sounded like
right,
rehearsed. Like her mom
right.
or her dad had told her like this is what you say to people.
Which I'm sure.
Which they got her, but and I'll just say they got her, a standard apartment, which is not built for anybody with disabilities for the most part. I mean,
No,
it was on a ground floor. It was like a
at
one
least,
level,
yeah,
apartment complex, but and it had like a
right.
little ramp and it had like a little step, but like I mean, it wasn't like her. I mean, it was standard kitchen counters, like
Yeah, she
for
couldn't use the
yeah, they
stove
had like a
or.
chair. It
Mhm.
was yeah. I mean,
Yeah. And that's what the neighbors say. They said,
yeah,
regardless of her age, she clearly needed help. Like
right,
she
right,
clearly was not able to take care of herself. So the neighbors contacted DCS, which the Barnetts didn't like, wonder why. and get hit with child neglect.
Yeah, but they couldn't really be involved because she technically wasn't a child. Like, but according to her her new birth certificate, she wasn't a
Right.
child.
And I don't think DCS knew that at first because they did investigate it, and neighbors said
Well,
like
and it
they
was
saw
this
Michael a couple
it
times.
was the same investigator from when she was a child living
Right.
with, and that ate them up. They were
Right.
so pissed because then the
Yeah.
dad, remember the dad that he had that weird recording about like the donuts, like she
Yes.
had donuts in
Yes.
her like her apartment.
Yes.
She had him, and like there's this weird video. It's Michael, and she's like laying on the
He's
couch.
recording
He's
he's
recording
recording
her,
her.
and he's just like, "Where'd you get these donuts from?" And she's like, "I don't know. Like somebody gave them to me." And he was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "We didn't buy these for you." And she's like, "Well, I found
Right.
them in the cabinet." He's like, "You've been here for months. These have been in here. Let me look at the expiration." So he walks back into the
Goes to check the
kitchen.
expiration date.
Right, and it's like something, and then he comes back out and he like kind of confronts her. He's like, "Where'd you get these donuts?" I mean, it's a pack, even
It's
like
a pack of
it's
donuts.
not even
Right.
like anything like from like a bakery or nice. And she's like, "Oh, Sue, my neighbor got him for me." And he's just like, "Why are you lying to me?" And it was they did these things,
Bizarre.
yeah. And like
Hmm.
out of
Hmm.
the Westfield apartment things, it was mostly Michael filming her, taking pictures of her. Like
Yes.
Christine really wasn't involved. And the neighbors
No.
even said like they hardly ever came by. They would like
Hmm.
come maybe once in a while. They would like drop
Right.
stuff off, drop groceries off, and then that was that. They got the
Right.
fuck out of there.
Exactly. But with the DCS investigation,
Mhm.
well, first of all, they wiped her. She had a cell phone. They wiped her phone
Yes,
of
they deleted
all
all of her
messages, contacts,
contacts.
because she was talking to the DCS
Yeah,
caseworker.
yeah.
She then, Natalia allegedly wrote a letter saying that everything she said bad about
Was
the
a
Barnetts abusing her was a lie. She
lie. Yeah,
recanted all of it. The neighbors end up not liking her. They say she's weird, that she gets a lot of complaints. They were
yeah.
trying to convict her. Allegedly, she called 911 herself, said she was stalking her neighbors and wanted to hurt them.
Right.
I,
That was
I'm,
so weird.
I know,
I don't
I'm
know what to make of some of
assuming
that
she was
stuff.
probably coached to do that too, or wanted attention.
Yeah, because she was
Um,
being a little. I'll say this: she was being, and they talk about it. And there's other neighbors who were interviewed, not just the
mhm.
old lady, but our old lady Sue, where she like Natalia would like as soon as they got home, she'd like run up to their front door, she'd knock on it. There was one instance, I don't know if you'll talk about it, where she like went into Sue's apartment when
Mhm.
Sue's grandkid and his friend were there
Yes,
and was like
and they
basically
said she
raiding her
was,
fridge, and she was kind of being weird,
yeah,
and like there was a
right,
lot of not of understanding of social boundaries, and like to the point where some of the neighbors were like, we didn't even want to leave because like you would leave and then she'd just show up there, like she'd be
right,
waiting for you to
right,
leave, and
right.
you had to get stuck in these conversations with like honestly sounds kind of kid like you just don't understand.
We don't have boundaries.
Yeah, like
And obviously, your adopted parents don't have
right.
boundaries either, and probably didn't teach them to you. So,
No,
oopsies.
no. Yeah, that was a big
So,
forgotten piece of
uh,
their upbringing with her.
forgot that in the parenting class. So sorry. So yeah, exactly. Yeah, there was just a bunch of weird things, supposedly making sexual advances to men and boys around the complex, telling neighbors she tried to kill her mom. DCS eventually did have to drop the investigation because she was an adult legally.
Yes,
She was an
yes.
adult. My kind of point is that the neighbors seem to talk a lot of smack. And the videos they do
Yeah,
show of Natalia, she does look young. She
she does
maybe
look
she doesn't
young.
look like she's 6, but she does not look any older than, she does not even look like a teenager.
No,
So
she looks like a little
here's what
kid.
I think. Here's what I think of why these neighbors were this way. I think the Barnetts paid them off.
Really?
Absolutely.
Why do you think that? I don't feel like they
Because
paid them
they
off.
didn't want to get caught. So they said, "Here's money, pretend she's crazy, tell everyone she's crazy." Because they have personality disorders and they want to save face, Jackie.
Oh, I don't disagree with you on that. I just
And they had lots of money, but then all of a sudden, a
all
couple
their
years
money's
later, remember they didn't have any money. Yes, part of that's from the divorce, but I think they paid people off. I think they paid these people to say, tell everyone that Talia is crazy. Because why else? How could you look at her and think that she's?
I think it was
I'm sure she was weird,
well, you got
but
to think about it. So this is the way I sort of think about it, at least from the perspective of people who don't know her, who don't know the family, who were kind of like these neighbors and these bystanders to this whole story. Is you're told, and she's telling you that she's an adult. She's walking up to you and saying, "Hi, I'm Natalia. I'm I look young. I look like a child, but I'm 22." I mean, I would probably not. I mean, I would be like, "Oh, you look really young," but she's also a little person. Like she also is, not even 3 feet tall. I mean,
yeah,
and the what she was doing and how she's behaving. And if you do watch some of the videos, she does have a little bit of more of like a, I want to say higher vocabulary, but she can like at 6, she was a little more
yeah,
conversive than most 6-year-olds that I've ever come into encountered with, which is not that many, but still, like you can talk to a 6-year-old. It's like, what's your favorite thing to do? It's like, I like to swing. I mean, like they would talk to her, and she was having like a full blown conversation with them.
yeah.
But I don't know that I would question, like, if she walked up and was like, I'm an adult, I don't know that I would be like, you're really a child. Like, I don't know that and then what would be their gain to, like, I mean, I guess money, obviously, what you're saying. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just playing devil's advocate. But I just don't know why they would accept that money. Like, I think the one neighbor couple with the redheaded guy and like his wife, I felt really bad for them because they seemed to genuinely be like really distressed by everything. I think her next door neighbor Sue was pretty distressed by it, especially after the whole grandkid incident. She was like, "Get that fucking bitch away from my door."
And then the neighbor that they didn't show her face, but she felt very strongly about things.
Right? She wouldn't. Yeah, they wouldn't.
Screaming.
Yeah. Oh my. Well, and paying off, I could see them like her because she was really like animated about everything. But it was.
It's just odd to me. Maybe you're right. Maybe in the moment you have all that happening. Like, you're just like, get away from me. Like, I don't care.
Because even in this documentary, you're like, the first episode, you're like, the parents are like, yeah, we loved her, blah, blah, blah. And then they're like, well, she was an adult. And you're like, wow, maybe she's an adult. And then when in the beginning, you're watching this and you're like,
yeah, you don't really know.
You're like, is she a kid? But like, I don't know. She is talking kind of like she's an adult. She does kind of like, she is wearing a bra at one point. Like, she is, all these things. I don't know that I would question. I mean, like, I don't know that I mean, clearly, and they do say that APS was called as well as CPS, and like they had so many calls at a certain point, and they were complaining to the property management company about her. The neighbors were, because there was an instant talk about it before. We probably should take a break at some point, but
we can take a break after this.
But like, so all the neighbors were complaining to the property management, and that person did an interview, and they were like, it's a process to get somebody evicted. Well, eventually they say, we're not going to renew your lease because there's just a lot. But there was an instance like right before this where one of the other neighbors who did not want to be interviewed, I think refused to be interviewed for the documentary, had his grandkid or some child in his life come over. And they were like rolling around, her, Natalia and this kid were rolling around in the grass outside. They were whatever, like doing kid stuff. And then everybody was like, it's weird because she's an adult, but whatever. And so they were... Allegedly, what was said is that they were like sitting, and then the guy noticed Natalia was like undoing the grandson's pants and like trying to be sexual, and like ran over, grabbed the kid, yelled at her, and like ran back inside. And I think that was like the nail in the coffin for everybody at the complex because they felt like it was too much. And then they decided not to renew her lease.
Well, Jackie, we're going to have to cut it off here because there's so much more to get into. We're going to have to do a part 2.
Yeah, I think we have to leave you on a cliffhanger. Yep. Guess what, everyone? Leave you on a cliffhanger. You're going to have to wait till the next episode.
Yes.
But before you wait, you guys can email tiredtherapist@gmail.com. 2 is spelled TWO, not the number 2. Don't do that. I don't know who has that email, but it's not us. And you can subscribe to us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Give us 5 stars. If you don't give us 5 stars, we don't want to talk to you. We hate you.
No.
You're dead to us. And also leave us an actual review and actually write things. And if you write nice things, we'll read them on our next podcast whenever we record next. So
yeah. Or we might read the mean ones too. I don't know.
Yeah, write nice stuff. But if you hate us, then also put that on there because I would love to read that.
We would love to hear that too.
These are 2 incompetent therapists. They should. I would die laughing. Anyways.
You're like, well, that's true.
Oopsies. Well, we're leaving you with this little cliffhanger. So sorry.
So sorry.
You'll
but
be
not
okay.
really.
No, you'll be fine.
It'll be worth the wait.
It's going to be worth it. Part 2 is going to be... It's going to be rough.
You thought part 1 was good.
Yeah. And it all goes... It's imagine the story is like you're on a roller coaster. You're going loop-de-loo all. Now we're at the top of the roller coaster and we're about to go down hard, 90-degree angle, flying out of the roller coaster. That's what's about to happen.
Right. That's on fire.
Yes. So, on that note, everyone.
So, on that note, we'll see you in 2 weeks for part 2. Stay tired.
And petty.